someone who likes to talk a lot? Or maybe, do you like to talk a lot? Well, today we're going to read a story about an animal that loves to talk. This story is called Yoko Yak's Yakety Yakking. Now, usually yakking means talking a lot, but in this story, there's a character named Yoko Yak. A yak is an animal that looks like this, kind of like a buffalo. And in this story, Yoko, they call her Yakety Yak because she loves to talk. Let's take a look at the cover. Here's the title, Yoko Yak's Yakety Yakking. Look at the pictures. This book is fiction, which means it's not real, it's a story. We can tell that by looking at the pictures, they're drawings or illustrations. In the pictures, the animals are wearing clothes and they talk, so that's how we know it's fiction. This book is written by Barbara de Robertis. She's the author. She's the one that wrote the words. And it's illustrated by R.W. Alley. They're the one that drew the pictures. This book is read aloud with permission by the publisher, Boyd Mills and Kane. Yoko Yak's Yakety Yakking. Now, as we're reading, we're going to listen for some tricky words. Alpha Betty's class. There are all the kids in the classroom. Yoko Yak yanked back the covers and bounced out of bed. She had so much to tell her friends about her adventure yesterday. Yodelady, Yoko sang in the shower. Yay for school today, Yoko chanted as she dressed. Mama Yak called to Yoko. Are you ready for breakfast? Yip, yap, yep, Yoko yelled back. Wow, this book has a lot of y words. It uses the letter Y a lot, just like in Yoko's name. Yogurt's yum, yum, yummy in my tum, tum, tummy, Yoko chattered as she ate. Don't talk with your mouth full, Yoko, said Papa Yak. Don't talk, period, please, said Yoko's younger sister, Yolanda. You're always yakety yakking. I am not, Yoko yelped. Now remember, yakety yakking means talking a lot. Yoko zipped into the yard at Alpha Betty's school. Yo, Polly, she yelled. Yo, Sammy, yo, Bobby, I went kayaking yesterday. Alpha Betty rang the bell. She smiled at Yoko. Alpha Betty is their teacher. We all want to hear about your kayak adventure. Today is a very busy day, but tomorrow afternoon we'll have sharing time. You can tell us about your trip then. But Yoko couldn't wait. She started telling Polly Porcupine about the kayak trip during math. We kayaked down Coyote Canyon, said Yoko. Shh, whispered Polly. We're supposed to be doing math. During silent reading time, Yoko started telling Sammy Skunk about the kayak trip. Sammy put his fingers to his lips. We're supposed to be reading silently. Uh-oh. Is Yoko's yakking or talking a lot getting her into some trouble? Next, it was time for art. Alpha Betty smiled at Yoko. You can draw a picture of your kayak trip. Okay, said Yoko. But Yoko also wanted to talk about her kayak trip. She started whispering to Bobby Baboon. Bobby put a hand over his ear. I can't think when you're yakking in my ear, Yoko. You're a very yakety yak today. Yoko burst into tears. Alpha Betty hurried back to Yoko's desk. Bobby called me a yakety yak, Yoko yowled. Bobby said, I'm sorry, Yoko. I do want to hear about your kayak trip, but not right now. Alpha Betty whispered to Yoko. Tell us about your trip with your drawing. And if you can be quiet little yak during class time, you may talk first during sharing time tomorrow. Do you think she's going to be able to do it? Do you think she'll be able to be quiet during class time and wait for sharing time? Let's see what happens. The next morning, Yoko was early for breakfast. She was wearing her Coyote Canyon t-shirt. She was holding her Coyote Canyon yo-yo. And she was absolutely quiet. Yolanda looked at Yoko. Then she looked at Papa. What's wrong with Yoko? She's not yakking. Yoko dipped her toast in egg yolk and popped it into her mouth. She smiled at Yolanda as she chewed with her mouth shut. This isn't like Yoko at all. When Yoko arrived at school, she smiled and waved to her friends. She smiled and waved at Alpha Betty. Yoko waited for math to begin. She was very quiet. Are you okay? Said Polly Porcupine. Yoko nodded yes and said nothing. Wow. During reading, Yoko was also very quiet. Are you okay? Asked Sammy Skunk. Yoko nodded yes and said nothing. When it was time for art, Yoko was still very quiet. Are you okay? Asked Bobby Baboon. Yoko nodded yes and said nothing. Finally, it was sharing time. Alpha Betty announced, Yoko, you may go first. This is our first tricky word, the word announced. Yoko ran to the front of the classroom. She smiled and said nothing. She showed everyone her 2 drawings of kayaks. She pointed to her yellow Coyote Canyon t-shirt. She demonstrated her yellow Coyote Canyon yo-yo. This is our next tricky word, the word demonstrated. All without saying a word. The class began laughing and chanting, Yakety yak, please come back. Yakety yak, please come back. Yoko laughed too. And then she began to talk. My kayak bounced over waves. I was soaked by water spray, and when I yelled, it echoed in Coyote Canyon. But I can be a quiet yak as well as a yakety yak, and I made up a yodel about it last night. Yodel for us, Yoko, yelled the class. First, Yoko whispered, oh, a yakety yak can be quiet as can be. A yodel, odel, odel, and a yip, yip, yippee. Then Yoko chanted loudly, and a yakety yak can yodel, a yakety yak can yak, a yodel, odel, odel, and a yak, yak, yak. Yay for you, Yoko Yak, cried Alpha Betty. And you proved you can be a quiet yak and a clever yak. Clever means smart, said Polly. And a funny yak, said Sammy. And a yodeling yak, laughed Bobby. Then everyone cheered, yay for Yoko Yak. And everyone did the yakety yak yodel. The end. Wasn't that a great story? So in this story, the main character, Yoko Yak, wanted to share with the class the entire story, didn't she? She was yakking the entire time until her teacher told her to be quiet. The teacher said she had to wait to share about her kayaking adventure. When Yoko learns to wait, she has patience.